So I know how much, how much mental power you also need in order to, beside the fact that everything is not going well, you have to believe, okay, I'm going to make it. I don't know when, but it's going to work. So I know how that feels I remember it so vividly. So I'm that way, I'm good to tell that to students. Say, look, I know it's depressing. I know you feel that this is too much, but if I did it, you can do it too. That's my point of view.
That's Ettore, it's so lovely to meet you here on Zoom. And thank you so much for your time and to talk to me.
My pleasure.
Tell me, where are you based at the moment?
So right now I'm in New Haven, which is where I live most of the year because I'm teaching at the Yale University, the Yale School of Music. So I have a house here in New Haven, which is, I would say, probably about 2 hours north from New York.
Oh, I see. Okay. So, and you teach from there, but you do master classes all over the world.
I do. I mean, I do. My main residence is here, but of course, I spend a lot of time in Europe, and I travel extensively during the whole year, particularly during the summer time, from beginning of May to the end of August. I'm never home. I'm basically always on the road. Yeah.
Really? Well, I saw on your website there's a clip where you teach, where it shows how you teach and so on. It's fascinating to watch that. And is this something teaching? Is it something you love? It's something that you do.
I do very, very much. I think it's something which, first of all, I must confess that, when I was young, when I was in my 20s, and I left Italy, went to study in Switzerland, even though I think I was very talented, and so I was not that good. I didn't have good basis. So what I've learned from my teachers there, it was something which I will be always grateful for the rest of my life. It was so important for me. It really changed my life. And I almost feel that I have to pass that to my students. I think it's also, I don't want to call it mission, might sound too pretentious, but I think I feel it's my duty because I really received so much in a very critical moment of my life, and I think I got those now all the tools to give it to the new generation. So it's very, very important part of my career. I also must admit that I find it very inspiring. I'm so privileged that here at Yale, the level of the students is extremely high. So of course, as a musician, as a teacher, you get inspired to get good students. You feel also the pressure of, when you have good students, to show that you are up to the task, which I think is very, very important.
It's so interesting that you also say this, that you get inspired, because many musicians that I talk to that teach say this thing, that you get also inspired by your students.
Exactly. You get inspired. First of all, there is something which even with students, give me a second. I want to put the notification off so we are not disturbed by.
Okay.
Give me a second.
Yeah.
It's good. So yes. So first of all, I must say there is always something very important when you observe a problem from outside, right? Because you hear someone playing, and maybe it's a problem which you're also dealing with. So it puts you in a completely different perspective, how to approach that difficulty, how to approach the passage, how to solve that problem. So it's very actually useful too. And then there is the other part that, especially when you deal with very, very talented, you actually you hear them playing and maybe they do something which you find incredibly beautiful, and you say, oh, but wow, that's so inspiring. Oh, that's something I would like to do. I would like to do that too, So there are multiple reasons why I found teaching being incredibly, not useful is a very poor word, but like you say, inspiring, and something which can make you a better musician, a better artist. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you said now that you felt that the teachers helped you and that was so important for you. And this is also something that I thought about a lot is the importance of the teachers. Do you think that there should be more sort of focus on that as well? You know, the importance of that part of musicianship.
Yeah, you see, I remember seeing that with my teachers, and I've seen many. Of course, I've observed many other people teaching. And first of all, you need to have someone. When there is a teacher, there must be someone which you respect, someone that has something to say, right? But also someone which really wants to dedicate himself to make you a better musician and better player. And sometimes you find only one of those qualities. Sometimes you find someone which is really dedicated, but maybe doesn't have as, let's call them, information or tools to help you, right? Or you have someone which has incredible amount of knowledge to give, but maybe it's just they are too busy, or maybe they don't have enough power to do it, or maybe there are too many. I just say he does too many things. So it's difficult to find a situation where you have a teacher which really knows a lot and at the same time really also push you and dedicates his full attention to you. And somehow I was so lucky when I was young to deal with those kind of teachers in my 20s, which really, for them, if I would fail, was their failure. You know what I mean? It was they suffered more than me. And that's why, particularly one of them, he would get really, really mad at me because he felt that I think it's, and at the same time, every time he saw that I was doing something well or I succeeded in something, he was so immensely proud of it because it was so important for me. And I must say now with the age also, I have some of the same, reaction myself. I feel so proud when my students do it. And when they don't do so well, I feel so responsible and also get, kind of impatient because of that.
Mm. But how much in this teaching process do you have to say, just be in this role where you motivate? Because, I mean, for you as musicians, it's a long path and it's a difficult path. And there must be times where your students just feel it's not working or how will I get there? Do you take on that role as well?
Of course. And I must say, this is something I feel lucky in this way that, so to just go back to my own story. So when I was 20 and I was accepted in this, the Menuhin Academy, which was based in Switzerland. And then when I was really lucky because there was one spot available, they had lost a violist, and somehow no one else came to audition for this school. It was a very small, high-level string school, and the teacher there gave me the apple to say, "Well, you are talented. You don't play very well. Actually, he told me very clearly, you play really badly, but let's try." But because of that, so I started from a low level. I struggled so many times up the stairs, at least for the first 3 years. It was really, even though, you would get better, but then there would be a crisis again, because then it would be another thing you should do better, which I was not capable to do. So I feel that I know so well the struggle, because I did struggle myself. Some of my colleagues, they played wonderfully when they were 12 years old, because probably they had good schools. And so that was not my case. So I know how much, how much mental power you also need in order to, beside the fact that everything is not going well, you have to believe, okay, I'm going to make it. I don't know when, but it's going to work. So I know how that feels I remember it so vividly. So I'm that way, I'm good to tell that to students. Say, look, I know it's depressing. I know you feel that this is too much, but if I did it, you can do it too. That's my point of view.
That's amazing. But now, in that sense, can you spot in a student somebody, as you said, you didn't, or the teacher said to you, you didn't play very well, but there must have been something in you that he had
Sure.
sort of faith in you. Do you have that? Can you see that in a student as well?
Yeah,
You can.
You see the people call it the raw talent. So you see something that the student has something special, because in between it really shows some special quality, like in their sound or just the incredible musicality, like they maybe really say something with the playing. So I can detect that. Then the point is this student really ready to go through a lot of fighting and a lot of effort? And that's not at this point is, I can dedicate myself. I can really, tell them the way and, follow them step by step. But I can't decide if they want to, practice every day and fight every day. It's up to the individual. But certainly I can spot when I feel that someone has an incredible talent or really good talent. At least I can see it.
But in this system that musicians go into, I mean, they have to audition and they have to go into music universities and music schools. Do you think there can be possibilities that people who are really talented slip through the net because they are not on that standard when they are going, compared to the people that they audition with?
So just that I understand the question correctly. So you are saying if the people that are not that talented are going to make it anyway, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm thinking so on that level, because it seems to be that the music universities take the musicians on a very high level. They have to already be on that very high level, that it's difficult for somebody who's not on that level to go to get that opportunity, and that it could be that this person could have been a very good musician and that they
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I sometimes I call it fate or the destiny, and I had in my own class, and I find it's very cruel, because every year I have, so many applicants. Yale School of Music is one of the very few free tuition school in the country, and that's why the level is also that high, because there are so many universities where you have to pay part of the tuition or the entire tuition. So because it's free tuition, is the number of violists, for instance, for the viola class is only 12. So in the entire school, there are only 12 violists, which of course makes it very competitive and very selective. But in between, there is always a scenario where somehow one student didn't accept an invitation from another conservatory, another university, and then other student actually got the job, so he's not going to study any longer. And then the opportunity for some of those people, opens up, that, which was my own experience. If you think about, I would never got in the Manual Academy in a normal audition setting because I wasn't good enough. Yeah. I always say in life you have to fight, but you also need to be lucky.
Yeah. And have the faith that the right person, will believe in you.
Yeah.
But how did you start with the viola? Because viola for me is a very interesting instrument, because I love the sound, by the way, of the viola, but it's not a very common instrument that you hear a lot of people play.
Yes, because it's not an instrument, I would say, you have the spotlight on it, like a pianist or a violinist, a viola, a violin, and even a cello. I call it's a very musical instrument, somehow. It helps, for instance, when we talk about string quartets or chamber music, it's the instrument that glues. It tends to, to be like a sort of glue between the high voices and the low voices. Okay. That's the way I would describe it. And then in between, when there is some really, let's call it what people would say, oh, that's a viola solo, then it can be really special, because composer did use the viola in a very, I would call it, not in a very virtuosic way most of the time, like it would be for violin, but in a very, a lyrical, which makes it, because the viola has, I think probably the greatest quality the viola as an instrument has is the cantabile, voice, which I think is tremendous. So there are so many cases in the chamber music literature when finally the viola has a tune, and everyone would just look at it because it's just so special. And how did it come to play? Well, So I started as a violinist when I did my studies in Naples, in Italy. And then at the age of 11 or 12, my teacher, he played both violin and viola. He noticed that, I had really strong fingers and long, and big enough somehow to, because the viola is a bigger instrument, so it needs mostly someone which is actually physically a little bit stronger or a little bit bigger, especially if you want to play a bigger viola. And he thought, it's a good idea. Why don't you try? So he just gave me the viola in my hands. And as soon as I put my bow and I started to play on the lower register, I thought it was something so special. And immediately I said, I want to switch.
Really?
So I waited 2 years to do some exam on the violin. And then at the age of 14, I think, or 15, I switched to viola. Yeah. Because I thought the voice I thought it was very melancholic. There was someone really kind of little sad, which I thought it was.
Yeah.
Unique.
That's right. That's the sound. I love that sound. But I spoke to a violist once who said that she started also playing the violin, and that she was never motivated to practice, and she just didn't enjoy it until the teacher gave her the viola, and then immediately it kicked in, and immediately she fell in love with the instrument. So how amazing that this is the sound that attracts people to the instrument.
Yeah. Mm. It's a bit like being. Sometimes I believe you are born somehow a violist, or just like you are born a cellist. So a little bit like for singing. As a singer, I mean, you can't really decide if you are a baritone or tenor. Not really. You are just born for it, and you discover it. So.
But did you come from a musical family?
Oh yeah. So my mom was a pianist. She's a pianist. She was teaching at the conservatory in Napoli. But I mean, my grandmother was also a pianist, and my grandfather was a composer. And actually, my grandfather, he was a very important personality in the music life in Italy, because he was the founder, what people consider to be one of the founder of the of the Italian, actually, piano school, to the point that he was asked by Anton Rubinstein. Anton Rubinstein was the director of I believe, of the St. Peter's Conservatory at the beginning of the century, 1900. So he was asked to go to St. Petersburg and teach there. So it was a very important. Unfortunately, I can't play one note of piano, but
well, you must have his teaching skills.
Yeah, some maybe.
But for the viola, are there composers that compose specifically for viola, or is it like you say, this is just the instrument that has to be played in an orchestra?
Okay, so let's put it about. There are composers which they have written specifically for viola, right? Of course, most of the repertoire, most of the so-called solistic repertoire I'm speaking about, when you basically appear as a soloist in front of an orchestra, they are mostly from the 20th century. They are not that many, except, if you think about, for instance, Mozart, one of the most, recognized masterpiece he wrote is the so-called Sinfonia Concertante, which is a concerto for violin, viola, and orchestra, for instance.
Oh, okay.
So that's, for instance, is one of the examples of great composer from the past, which wrote for viola solistically. And I could also mention, for instance, Hector Berlioz, the French composer. He wrote a big symphony piece, which has a viola feature as a soloist. Harold in Italy is called. It's an amazing piece where the viola, even though it's not used as a virtuosic instrument, it's featured as a solistic instrument, and it's a masterpiece. So there are examples, and sonatas for violin and piano from Schumann to Brahms and so on. But of course, if we compare the solo literature to violin and cello, of course there is no comparison. And I think probably also because I believe that viola was a very difficult instrument to play because it's just bigger. It's
I see. Okay.
think that must be one of the reasons. In the other hand, we have fantastic repertoire in the chamber music, formation, particularly in quartets from, Mozart, Beethoven, Brahms, Schumann, Mendelssohn, which feature the viola brilliantly. And, it's a joy to play that music, actually, as a violist.
But can you, as a violist, and if you take the violin, is there a difference in playing? Can you now switch over and play the violin?
Yes, I can, but how good will sound, I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. So there is a...
No,
so
look, first of all, I want to make a distinction. So there are actually violinists out there, some violinists out there that can actually play the viola incredibly well. And one of them, for instance, is Pinchas Zuckerman, which is a violinist, one of the greatest violinists of the last 40 years. And he can play the viola incredibly well. Like actually, some people are saying that he plays the violin with the sound of the viola because it's so full and so rich. Yes. Yeah. So there are people like that, and there are people violinists that play the viola well. Maybe you can feel that they are not really violists because they don't really go deep into the sound characteristic. Also because obviously when you are a violinist and you want to play both, you tend to play a viola because you might know that while a violin and a cello, they have a sort of standard size, it doesn't change as much. When you play the viola, you can really go very, very big. You can go up to 44, 45 centimeters, all down to 39.
Really?
So when you have 39 or 40, it's very comfortable to play. But also the kind of sound is more violin-like. Mm. While the opposite, the bigger it gets, like 43, 44, then the darker the sound gets, and the more people say it's like a cello sound, which of course is, in my opinion, is what a viola should sound. It should be dark. That's what people say about the best viola sounds is the one which bigger viola produce, and I really believe in that. And of course, the bigger viola is hard to go from a big viola to a little violin. So you have to it's mostly, of course, the length of the string is different, so it's bigger. And if you switch back and forward, you might have difficulty with the intonation, But some people, they do wonderfully on both. They can adjust very fast. I think maybe the biggest problem has to do more with the sound, the way you use the bow, which even though there are so many similarities, really similar, but still the proportion are different. I don't know, like the speed of the bow is very different than you would have on the violin, especially when you play a big viola. Or the vibrato also, you have to use it the principle is absolutely the same, but maybe a vibrato on the violin, which sounds perfect, on the viola might sound a little bit too small, so you don't hear it well enough.
Okay.
So there are tiny different. I would say if you are really a good violinist and a sensitive violinist, which have good sense of sound, you can pick up a viola and still, especially if you spend some time, you can do it well. Then, if you want to be the best violist out there as a violinist, that's more difficult, of course.
Okay, yeah. So you need what I can understand from you. You also need a little bit more power or
more strength. Absolutely,
strength.
Even sometimes I have students which are, let's call them, smaller than I am, and they want to play a bigger viola, and it's really an effort because they have to stretch their arm.
Oh yeah.
So in those cases, sometimes I tell them, look, you can't play such a big viola because you might risk to injure. I mean, I know many people that actually got injured as a violist than as a violinist. You know what I'm saying?
Because, really?
Yeah. It just, especially, and that's why people believe, and I do believe too, with, of course, exceptions, that if you are taller or, you have longer arms, then it's easier to play a bigger viola. Now, I've seen people that are tiny and still manage to play bigger violas, and don't take me wrong, but the tendency is this one, obviously.
So what is the injuries then? Because this is also something fascinating. If you think you compare injuries to, say, somebody who plays football or somebody who has this type of, but And I hear very often from musicians and even pianists who talk about back problems and so on. So what is the health problem or the physical problem?
I would say I can speak for at least violinists and violists because I know many of those. So one of the most common problems is when people get tendinitis, because they work and work and work and work. And also maybe they work using too much tension. That's, because somehow if you think about as a string player, as a musician in general, as you abuse your body because you practice from the day. And I would say, particularly as a violinist and violist, we play in a very uncomfortable position because we have to put our arm this way, which is just for me to put it like that, it feels tense. A pianist at least plays with the gravity, right? They go down. We go against gravity. We have to do this and this. So we have to, and that, of course, makes us more vulnerable towards injury. And many times, one of the characteristics of injury is to be, one of the reasons is to be, as I said, to practice too much with tension, because tension and it's a big part of being injured. And it's difficult to play without tension, and that's why it's so important to have a good teacher as a young players that teach you to play in a more relaxed way. Because if you start from the very beginning with a healthy setup, then it's easier to go on with your career and play a lot, practicing a lot, without getting injured.
And the neck, is it also because you have
Yes, of course there are people also neck and back. Yeah, that's of course.
Yeah.
But I would say what happens, I think with the back and with the neck, you can still, do stretching exercise. Like you can still, I don't say easily because it's never easy, but there are many more ways to get around that. With the tendinitis, there are people that had to stop playing for 4 weeks, for 4 months sometimes.
Yeah.
So it becomes way more severe somehow with the hand, with the finger, with the wrist, and so on.
And Ettore, tell me, if you play, do you have specific shoes that you wear?
No, not really.
You don't.
When I practice, actually, because when I'm staying, when I went to Switzerland when I was 20, I got this habit to be in the house without shoes. Because so I when I'm home, I always practice, or in a hotel room, I always practice without shoes. Which I discovered being a really nice feeling, because you really feel the ground so well, which I think is very important for musicians, especially when you stand up, feeling the ground. When I go and perform, or I go, to rehearsal, no, shoes is not a big part of it. Even though, of course, you want to wear comfortable shoes.
Yeah. Could they bring a new trend in that violinists and violists play barefoot?
There is a trend already.
Really?
There is a very. I'm afraid to mispronounce her name, Patricia Kopenskaya. So, she's Swiss Austrian, I believe. She's often in Switzerland. We often are playing the same festivals, and she plays completely barefoot since many years.
Really? Oh, okay. That's so interesting.
It's becoming a trend too. There is definitely something about, there is one very, 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 very famous violinist and pedagogue called Sándor. He was Hungarian. He's been a major influence on not just on violin but on music making. Yeah? And he always I played with many people that did study with him, and he always mentioned the fact that you should never wear high heels if you're a musician, because if you wear high heels, you don't have contact with ground, and the music needs to be grounded, and you have to be grounded. So it was a very interesting concept. And I do really very much believe that, with shoes or without shoes, you always need to feel contact with the ground.
That's so interesting. And that, and also that idea of that music that you have to be grounded.
Yeah. I found also the concept of being grounded helps so much, especially when you go on stage. it is a very beautiful picture. I was told, someone said about how to deal to the anxiety when you go on stage and maybe you play with a big orchestra, there's thousands of people listening to you. So what sort of approach you should have? And the approach was, you go on stage, you really feel you fit, be so grounded, but you also feel that you're like a tree, and somehow you start to have roots under your feet. And even though there will be a lot of wind, so you will feel, maybe pushed right and left, you can feel that attachment into the ground. So you're never going to break.
Amazing.
A very, very beautiful picture.
Yeah.
Sometimes I use myself, yeah.
So do you still get nervous when you do performances?
More than ever.
Really?
I do. It's not getting any easier, that's I can tell you. I would say maybe it gets slightly worse now, yeah.
So what would be the reason? Do you feel more pressure?
I think it's because especially the higher you get, and the higher you feel expectation that people have, or expectation that you have towards the music. Because you feel, of course, you feel nervous because of the people that are in the hall, but you also feel nervous that you want to show to yourself or to the composer, to the music, that you're up to the task. So there's this pressure that you always, unfortunately feel. And of course, that's the only thing you should not think when you go on stage. I mean, when you go on stage, you should just focus on music, on saying something, on enjoying every note of the music you're playing. But before going on stage, of course, you feel that pressure of saying, what about if I'm not going to play as well today? Well, it's tough. It's really tough, I think, especially if you care.
Yeah, I can imagine. But now, what would your advice be to young violists?
There are many. First of all, they have to practice a lot, and I think they have to be open to try many different things. Too many times I hear people saying, "Oh, I want to be an orchestra player," or "Oh, I want to be a teacher," or "I want to play chamber music," which are all wonderful things. But I think, especially nowadays, you need to be ready to do anything. You need to be good at many things. You have to be a wonderful, capable to play solo with orchestra really beautifully, or to be an excellent teacher, to be an excellent ensemble player in an orchestra, in a chamber music constellation, and so on. So I think you need to somehow cultivate different sort of scenario. But first of all, because you're going to be a better musician if you do that, if you are capable, because then you will learn from so many lines, and so from so many places. But then it will give you more opportunity in a career, which, as we know, it's tougher and tougher. So it's good to have more option in your hands.
So a more open approach to...
Yes, much more open approach.
But now, what are your wishes still for the future?
Playing, and playing.
Really?
No, I like playing. I like, there are so many pieces which I still didn't play. So many wonderful masterpieces which I want to do again also. People I want to play with, and concert hall I want to play in, or going back there. So I still have a lot of things. Even though when I look back, I realize, oh my God, I've been playing in so many places with so many people, which is really nice.
Yeah.
But I hope I can do it, and I hope I can do it well for more years. And I also hope that the day I cannot do it so well, I will realize and I will stop it, because I don't want to become like one of those musicians which they just keep on playing, even though they really don't sound at all as they used to. And there are many, unfortunately.
Really?
I think it's also we have a very tough life, especially when you travel a lot and you play a lot. But it's a very, and we do complain about this life. You go to a hotel, you practice, even though maybe you are in Vienna, you don't have a chance. I was in Vienna last time, I don't know, just before the pandemic, because I was playing in how is it called, the beautiful hall in Vienna?
Musikverein.
Yeah, Violist Verein with the artist quartet. I don't know if you ever heard of the artist quartet. We were playing the Bruckner quintet there. And somehow, Vienna is an incredible city. I mean, there's music in every corner you go. There is something to do with the music. But I wish I would have so much more time, right? Because, but then unfortunately, you have to rehearse, you have to practice your own part, and so on. So we complain about the lifestyle we have because we feel that we travel a lot, we get tired, we don't see enough because we are always in the room or in the concert hall rehearsing, playing. But at the end, I think what we do is also very addicting. And to go from doing so much to nothing, it's really hard. It's so and somehow I have great amount of admiration for people that at one point, even though they were incredibly, busy and popular and in demand, on one point they said, "I'm not anymore as good as I used to be. I don't want to go on," and they stopped. I know it will be difficult for me too because I love playing and I love traveling, and I'm also addicted to that lifestyle. Yeah, it's a different. I hope it will be as late as possible, but you never know.
But it's I think it's also that thing, what you're doing, and it's difficult to imagine not doing it. And
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's just very difficult.
I know.
It's also what we have been known, since we're children, basically.
Yeah. It's that's what I found during the pandemic as well. That many musicians and also 2 of my children are ballet dancers. They know what that's the life they know, and then suddenly when you think, okay, now I'm not doing this now, then you sort of it's suddenly, what do I do then? So I can completely imagine that it must be difficult, especially after a long career, to step out and say, okay, but who am I now when I'm not with my instrument?
But that's why I tell you my personal experience has been so great for me while playing concert, developing this passion I have for photography and doing a lot of photography and doing my traveling or making portrait for musicians because they need it for the website. That was something because I feel so passionate about, and that was something which puts also my attention, my time into something a little different. Actually, I mean, there are so many things which photography and music have in common, but something a completely different craft, right? Technically, and I think that's another advice I would give to young people. Don't just be only music focused, which even though I know it's incredibly important, you need to, because you miss so much of life is so broad, right? And even though music is so incredible and so rich, there's so much more that you should explore. And I think one should always be open.
Yeah, and I think also the one thing that you do also brings something to the other thing, So if you, like you say now, the photography and the music, and you can almost see.
Learn from each other. Oh, of course, that's my experience. I think I became. I mean, it's crazy to say that, but I think I became better musician after photography started to be something very important. I know about that. And I think it's first of all because you get inspired looking at something artistic or something creative, which is different. But also because I believe the fact that your mind focus on something else, it refreshes the way you look at things.
Exactly.
In your mind, you only have your music and your passages and your struggle, then you risk to get stuck. While if at one point you also put focus on something else, then when you go back, then you feel much freer.
Yeah, I think photography does that. It makes you because you're used to looking through a lens, so you see a specific thing. So it makes you focus on specific things. So you notice things. You notice things more. I think that's the thing with photography.
Absolutely.
But this was now so lovely to talk to you and so inspiring. Yeah, and all what you talked about, the teaching as well. I think it's so fascinating. And I also, during the lockdown, the musicians that I spoke to, they talked so highly about their teachers, and I just realized that a teacher is such an important part in a musician's life.
It is. I think it is.
Yeah.
I'm still every day thinking at one point of what my teacher told me.
Really? Yeah, you see.
And I
Yeah.
do remember so vividly. The good things they told me, also the things that they were upset about it, it's so vividly in myself. So they
Yeah.
really left a mark, a very, very
Mm.
strong mark, which won't never disappear. And I'm grateful
Yeah.
for that.
Well, I'm sure you're leaving marks as well, in musicians' lives. So, but Ettore, I just want to ask you one more question. What do you drink after a concert, wine or beer?
Good question. It would be way more elegant to say that I drink wine, but unfortunately, I drink a beer because, believe it or not, and now I feel really ashamed by this. Even though I come from a country with the best wine in the world, and
Yeah.
already during my year as a student at the Mandarin Academy, I was exposed to the best wine. We would play with the Yehudi Menuhin, so we would be in those very fancy dinners and receptions with the finest wine. For some reason, don't ask me why, I never like wine. It's really sad.
Oh, really?
It's really sad. I don't know why. I do enjoy beer, and I'm really like, if I can, I really like to have a more like a cocktail-like style.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like it could be Aperol Spritz, it could be Negroni. That's the
Oh,
best
okay.
the best way to end an evening after a concert.
Oh, okay. Well,
But
it
I'm
seems.
but I'm not an alcoholic. I can tell you that. Normally, I don't drink, but after a concert, it's obviously
Yeah.
nice.
No, but you're in good company because most musicians drink beer after a concert. I found that fascinating because I would also think it would be wine, but no, it seems to be beer. So, but thank you so much for your time, and have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you. You too. Thanks so much for.
Okay.
Thanks
Thank
again.
you.
Yeah,
Okay.
have a wonderful day.
Bye. Bye.